Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Hour podcast. I'm super excited today because we're here with Dian Taylor, and we were just speaking a bunch off air. We just decided to hit record because we were just gonna sit here for hours talking. But I was just telling her how much of a fan I was of her content, and obviously a lot of people listening probably follow your blog as well, Dian. So thank you so much for coming to the podcast. But yeah, I appreciate your time, and I've got so many questions prepped for you. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first question I've got for you is, you joined the space in 2011. That's when I discovered, at least from my research, where you discovered Dynamics CRM, and you're a six-time MVP now. So my question is, what drew you first to the Dynamics 365 space or the CRM space in general? And then how did you find your current role in pre-sales engineering?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. I was not in a tech role at all before I started working with Dynamics CRM, as it was called in 2011 at the time. I was in an HR role for a while, and I basically went to the COO and had a conversation with him about the fact that I wanted to do something in technology. So he says to me that you've been a great employee. You've contributed a lot. You're working hard. Absolutely, we can create a role for that. But what is that role that you would like to be? And I kind of did not expect that answer, so I was totally unprepared. And I was like, okay, I need to think about this for a little bit, right? So then the CEO heard about that, and he calls me into his office like a couple of days or a week later. I don't even recall how long later it was. And he said, okay, so I hear that you are interested in a tech role. How about, you know, Dynamics 365 or Dynamics CRM as it was called at the time. So I told him, I have no idea what that is, but I'm in. So I kind of rolled into that whole area, so to speak, by I guess having that conversation internally at the company I was at that particular time. And just like I said, the feedback and that I got from leadership was amazing. And they really, excuse me, allowed me to they sent me to training, and then I started working with clients on that. It was pretty tough, especially in the beginning, because I was the only one in that practice. There was nobody else there. So but then on the other hand, it's also a great learning school, right? If you have to figure everything out by yourself. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of how I got started.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you started in implementation, I'm sure, because you worked your way to that job and you were kind of the go-to person. So I'm sure you were kind of doing a bit of everything. But now you work more in the pre-sales role. So for people listening who might not know the difference, what differences would you say there are between implementing and then doing pre-sales?
It is very, very different. So basically, pre-sales is almost want to say like the super light version of implementing. Can I say that?
Yeah.
It's the super light app of implementation. So what I mean by that is because my job is really to look at requirements that a customer or a prospect might have, and then show them how the application can really help them accomplish what they want to accomplish, right? Obviously, it's not building out the entire solution of the way that they would see it once it's implemented. It's more of like showing them that the capabilities are there. So I think a very important part of being a pre-sales engineer is obviously listening to your prospect, right? Why are you currently looking at a different solution? If we're talking about sales or field service or customer service or marketing or any of those, why do you want to move away from the product that you currently have? Or if you don't have a product, if you are doing what a lot of companies are still doing, you would be surprised. If you're using Excel, for example, to track your sales, then what are some of the reasons that you feel you need to move to a more mature platform, right? Because Excel is really not a database, right? So really kind of listening to what they want to get out of the application, and then basically tailoring your demo towards those things. If there are particular pain points that people are experiencing, being able to show them in the demonstration how you can relieve them, right, from those pain points. I think that's going to make a winning demo. Now, in the beginning, when I started, I had no idea. I hadn't done a demo to win, a demo to discovery to win yet, which I've done later in 2011, late in 2011, where they're also kind of talking about how do you present, right? Tell, show, tell. First, when you are presenting, when you're showing something, first tell them what you're going to show them, tell them the scenario, then show it to them, and then again, tell them what you showed, right? Kind of really emphasizing what you've done. So in the beginning, I was horrible because I was like, let me just show as many features as I can in this demo. That's not going to do it. Think about yourself. When you go to a car dealership, if you have a wife and you have kids, you probably are not going for a sports car, right? But if the salesperson is not listening to you, right? Because you're trying to explain, like, look, I have a wife, I have kids, I need a larger car, I probably want that type of car, right? And they're coming and they're bringing you their sports car, and look how fast this can go, and look, it has automated whatever windshield wipers that immediately, as soon as there's water, it turns itself on. If that's not something you're looking for, you're probably going to get out of that dealership as soon as possible. So I think that this is very similar to that.
Yeah,
Hopefully that kind
absolutely.
of
No, it
answers.
absolutely does. I think you've painted the picture of kind of what the differences are, and also around some of the skills, which I feel like, when you're implementing, I always feel like it depends on the role. Like if you're a consultant, I feel like you need sales skills, you need to know how to listen, you need to know
Great.
how to build trust with your customer. And I feel like when you're in pre-sales, also, those skills are necessary, and maybe some differences in the skills as well.
Yeah.
I mean, something I'm curious about is your personal journey into that as well. So what made you want to go to pre-sales? Was it something that just kind of showed up on your desk and you're like, oh, I'm willing to give it a go? Or was it more kind of something you gave thought about and was like, I want to do that eventually?
Yeah. So this is really kind of highlighting me and my big mouth, I guess. So I changed companies again, doing implementations. Unfortunately, I was promised that we would like build the practice so that there would be more consultants beside just me. I was the entire CRM practice. I was doing pre-sales. I was doing implementations. I was doing project management. I was doing everything by myself. And obviously, you can only do that for so long, right? You are also not being set up for success if you're the only person doing everything. You just cannot keep that up. You cannot grow your practice, and you cannot stay successful that way. So I had communicated that to my manager and his manager as well. And they're like, no, we're going to hire people, blah, 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 which they never did. 4.5 years in, still nobody was hired. So I told him, I'm like, look, if none of you guys, because I first talked to my boss and then I talked to his boss, and I said, if none of you guys want to invest in this, then you're setting me up to fail. That's what you're doing. And I'm not going to stay in a position where I'm going to fail, because that's the only option, right? If it's just you. Plus the fact that I was working 12 to 16-hour days. So I was like, I was really burnt out. And I was like thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. So I went to a conference. There's always a lot of partners at conferences. So I went by the booths. Hey, hi, my name is Dian Taylor. This is what I do. Are you guys hiring? So that's what I ended up doing. Are you guys hiring? Are you guys hiring? Are you guys hiring? And at the end of the conversation, I had like 3 or 4 interviews lined up with these guys. So I was kind of, starting to prep for that. And again, really in my head saying, I don't want to do implementations anymore because I'm so burnt out. I want to be focused on something. So that could be either focused on implementing, or focused on pre-sales, or focused on, I don't know, PMing or whatever, right? So since I really love the technology, I still today, obviously, otherwise you can't create as much content, as I try to do, if you don't like what you're writing about. So I kind of wanted to still be hands-on and kind of still be able to touch the application and do configurations. I just didn't want to be in the implementation space of it. So that's kind of how I kind of felt like, this is what I need to do, right? Still being able to touch the application, not being completely burnt out, and really having the opportunity to say like, okay, this project is done, right? My demo is done, my project is done. Now hand it over to the implementation folks and they'll take it from there. So then during that conference, I actually had a friend of mine who worked for an ISV that actually said, hey, I talked to somebody last night and he gave me his card. You should call him. And that was actually a person at my current company, RSM, that was in 2015. I cannot believe that was a decade ago already. And so I'm seeing on his card RSM. I'm like, what is this RSM thing? Never heard of RSM because they just changed their name from McGladrey to RSM. And I was like, okay, well, I really didn't want to talk to him, but she put in the effort, she put in time to get me his card. So I kind of felt like I have to talk to him and have at least a conversation. So I called him. We met up at the conference. We had a very great conversation. Then I had some additional conversations and interviews, and that was it. That's when I
Yeah,
started back in 2016 for RSM. So
that's
it's been a
awesome.
crazy journey for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And, going into like a different role, that navigating the changes between implementation and pre-sales, I mean, I'm sure that, please tell me if I'm wrong, but there may have been things that surprised you, things not so much. So is there anything you felt, you mentioned, I think it was Demo to Win, and then they have another one as well, which for anyone listening who doesn't know what they are, and Dion, please tell me if I'm wrong, they are programs, like effectively courses and cohorts that you can join and learn how to demo things properly.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
and a lot of other things that you not necessarily think about, right? So those are exactly that. There is a company that does those training courses, Discovery to Win and Demo to Win, and they have a bunch of other ones as well, which I am still, like I said, I did that course in 2011, and I'm still thinking about some of the things that they taught us. It's the course is amazing. If you are in pre-sales or you're thinking about pre-sales, I would definitely recommend going to those courses for sure. But yeah, absolutely. There were a lot of things where, when you go into this role, you're like, oh, this is going to be so easy because I've done implementation. I do recommend having implementation experience before going into a pre-sales role, right? Because you still want to be able to articulate how some of the solutions that you're building, how they might work once they get implemented. Because again, and one of the folks, Bob, actually, I'm not going to say his last name. Bob said to me in the beginning, he says, stop thinking like an implementation person when you're building out these demos. And he was right, because some of these things, it's okay to show things that are smoke and mirrors. If you know that this can be done, right, in an implementation, then it's okay to use smoke and mirrors. And I will give you an example of that. For example, an integration. I do a lot of demos with the folks that are doing ERP demos. So you don't have to show the integration with FNSC and Dynamics 365 sales or field service, right? You can just smoke and mirror it, where I'm showing an account or a work order, and then we're flipping over to my coworker screen and look, here's the same account, and go. You don't have to configure that because there's no added value there, and you know that that functionality works, right? So those are some of the things where I was like, oh, interesting, because I thought everything that I build, it has to be exactly how we would implement it. And that's not true at all. I would, if there are certain things that you're not sure about, would this actually work, right? If we're doing an implementation, get those guys involved, talk to them. How do you think, how would you build this? Would this actually work? Because, the technology changes constantly, right? And I have been out of doing actual implementations for almost a decade now. So I need to help for some of those guys sometimes to say like, hey, would this actually work if we would implement a solution like this for a customer?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And pre-sales is, or not even just pre-sales, sales in general, I feel like it gets an icky feeling. I don't know if it's just me, but in general, you think sales, you think weird, the guy trying to sell you the sports car,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's what you think. So I feel like there's a lot of myths on that, because I feel like we're always selling. Like, for example, even as
Yeah.
a consultant, I feel like we're selling the customers on ideas that we believe would be best for them, even if they don't think so. That's an example of selling within a consultant's job. So, what would you say to people who think pre-sales is icky, or, who don't agree with that smoke and mirrors if you believe in the implementation? I guess my question here is, what would you say is kind of the selling aspect of that role? So you're selling the technology, but what would you say to people who would think that pre-sales or sales in general has a bit of an icky tone to it?
I completely understand because I kind of feel the same way as well. And if people tell me, I had management tell me like, well, you're on the sales side. I'm like, I'm not a seller. Go away. No. So I totally get it. I totally get it. But I'm trying to not view me and my team, myself and my team that way. I try to look at us as we are your trusted advisors. And this is also was one of the reasons that I really wanted to work for RSM after I became more familiar with them as I was going through the interview process, because I kind of learned about what RSM is about. We're not about pushing sales. We are about understanding our customers. One of their mottos is the power to be understood. And I think that's what you need to do as a sales team, right? As a team that is trying to get their customers on the best possible solutions. We need to understand what your problems are and then come up with a solution for that, really, right? So if there are certain things that I'm talking to you as a customer about customer service, and you're telling me, oh, this is not how I want to use it. I want to use it in other ways where customer service is not going to be a good fit. Guess what? I'm going to tell you it's not a good fit, right? Those are also one of the things that I actually discussed when I had those interviews where I was like, look, I'm not going to push things where I think it's not a good fit. And they said, well, great, because we don't want that. We really want to be that trusted advisor. And I think really in a technology space, that's kind of how you have to look at these sales teams, right? Again, we are consulting, right? That we think this is why this would be a good fit for you. And the pre-sales demos are really to show you why we think this would be a good fit for you. So hopefully that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it absolutely does, and I love the mindset, and I think, and I'm sure you agree with this, Dion, but it's a lot about kind of trust more than it is about sales, trying to sell them on the thing.
Yes.
I think even in general, I've started my company recently, and I don't like to approach people with a sales mindset. I would only approach people if I think I can help them, and I think
Yes.
that's the most important thing. And I think to anyone who still sees that icky side of selling, I don't think it's that. I think it's you have a solution, you think you can help them. If you can't help them, you will tell them that, but in general, you can.
Yeah.
Dion, I'm very curious because we spoke off air and I told you I've been following your blog for some time. The community stuff you do, you have a very successful blog, popular, and then, you're giving talks with people who have big names in this space, including yourself, of course. So what kind of got you started in this community aspect of things?
Well, it's kind of funny because as we said earlier, I did implementations first,
Mm.
and part of the implementations was doing customer training and putting content together, right, about the stuff that I've built, and then train them on that, on how to use it, and all that kind of stuff. So going into pre-sales, you're not doing that anymore. You're not doing customer trainings anymore. You're not writing content anymore on the stuff that you've built and the new features that were released, right? So that was a big miss for me because that was actually one of the parts that I really enjoyed, probably the most of the entire process of implementing a system. So the ability to start my blog and my YouTube channel was really kind of filling that hole, right, of the stuff that I was missing. And Rachel, at that particular time, she works now at Microsoft. I'm just using first names because just in case people are not happy about that, so I'm just going to use first names.
Yeah.
So Rachel was a person who was already an MVP. We had one MVP at RSM back in whenever that was, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 7 years ago. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. 2018. Yeah. 2018 or 2000. Yeah, I think it was 2018. And she led internally this mentorship program for people at RSM that wanted to become an MVP and wanted to contribute and wanted to learn more about how to contribute and how to set up a blog and how the tools that are available out there and all that kind of stuff. So I went into that program and worked with her and a bunch of other people as well. One of my coworkers, Seth, was also in the program as well. He was a MVP as well. And that kind of got us interested, or not necessarily interested. We had that interest, but got us more up to speed on how to do some of these things, right? How do you write a blog? Like, what are some of the things that are available, and how to, because in the beginning, obviously, you don't really know what you're doing, right? You don't know what to write about. I wrote a lot about, like I did for my customers, I wrote a lot about stuff that I had implemented in the past. And then as time went by, and at a certain point, you're running out of ideas, because I was doing one article a week, and later on an article and a video per week. And I've done that for the past like 5.5 years, a little more. Recently, I have to now do it like once every 2 weeks, because I don't have enough time, unfortunately, to do that. And I was starting to get a little bit burned out. So I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back a little bit. But yeah, so that's kind of how that got started. But like I said, as I was moving on and running out of ideas and stuff that I'd built, I decided to focus on what I would want out of a blog, right? What would I want when I go visit somebody's blog? I want to see what's coming next. I want to know all about the new features, because, sorry, Microsoft, but sometimes there's not enough data on the Learn site that Microsoft has. And even if there is information on there, a lot of times I don't understand what the heck they're talking about. What does that mean? Like,
Right.
I have 3 sentences, and nowadays it's written with AI. A lot of times and then I'm like, what does that mean? Why is there not any screenshots? Why is there not any videos? Yes, they release, for example, for the Wave 2 that just came out, they have one video for sales and one for Copilot Studio. Nothing for customer service, nothing for any of the other ones. So that's when I decided, okay, I want to really focus on those types of things. So that's really what, as you obviously know, my blog is about. Really, what are the preview features? How do they work? How do I set them? How do I set them up? How do I configure them? What are the benefits? Why should I use this? Right? All of those types of things, which first I write my article, and then I use my article to also create a YouTube video for that as well, because we all consume and learn different, right? Some people prefer reading about it, so blog article. Some people prefer, just watching a video. Let's do a video on it as well, because I've already written the outline in the article anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, content creation was it was a new space. I knew I always wanted to do it inherently. I didn't know what. I had like a very embarrassing YouTube channel a few years ago where I was just uploading stuff about random stuff, not Copilot stuff. Anyway, moving on. Something I really struggle with myself is helping people stay consistent. People come to me, they want to share, they want to give, but they really struggle with consistency. And as you've mentioned a couple of times, burnout. So what would you say to the people just getting started, the people who are probably, in their journey, they're making content, they're kind of in the middle of their journey. And what would you say to people who are dialing out and, maybe need to take a little bit of a break towards the end?
Yeah, I think it also kind of depends on, what are you trying to accomplish, right? Because if there are people, and I know people that were like, oh, I want to become an MVP. Like, can you tell me, how do I become an MVP? Because I just want to become an MVP. Okay, if you just do this for that MVP title, you're not going to last.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, if you're not big on blogging, and you're not big on, organizing events or speaking at events or creating videos and answering questions, or like whatever that might look like, if you're not enjoying that, then you might get your first MVP and then you're going to drop it because you don't like it. So focus on the stuff that you like, right? If you want to share your content, share your content. And, make it about stuff that you enjoy. Don't, if you have a hard time if you don't like, I don't know, Azure or certain features in Azure, it's too complicated. For whatever reason you don't like it, then don't write an article about it. If there is an article or a video or whatever content or a presentation about a certain thing that others have already written about or created videos about, it doesn't matter, because your perspective is unique. And this is what I see a lot with people. And I've had the same mindset myself as well, where I was like, well, somebody else already wrote about that. And that's also kind of, I guess, why I went a little bit to new features. because there's less people that have written about that. But again, it doesn't matter because it's your unique perspective on that. If you feel overwhelmed, take a step back. You know what I mean? Just start doing. I would recommend having a cadence. I wouldn't say, just create content whenever you feel like it, because then the threshold is going to be too big to overcome, right? So just set a schedule for yourself. Maybe write something once every 2 weeks, once every month, whatever that might be, whatever you're comfortable with. That still allows you to, share your knowledge and bring out content, but it's going to be on your terms. Because I think it's very, very important to, again, right? Enjoy what you're doing, right? Enjoy what you're writing about and what you're doing videos about or answering questions about. It has to be enjoyable. Otherwise, you're just not going to last. That's just the way
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely. And I'm all for sustaining habits. Like I'm a huge fan of habits. And I
Yeah.
remember when I started off, I always like to use this analogy, but when I was started to go to the gym, I was like, I want to go to the gym. I want to look good because I was like, I had a belly and I was like, I don't want to look like this. So I started going to the gym and I was lifting the weights and I was like, I look really stupid doing this. I'm sure I'm not doing it right. I'm sure it's wrong. I'm sure that guy's looking at me. I'm sure this person's looking at me. But my goal was just to show up. My goal was just to show up, to
Yeah.
lift the weights, to do something, right? And eventually, when you build that up over years, you get good, you get better, you can lift the weights properly, you stop looking silly, and you move on from that. And I feel like it goes for with anything else that I've done, from
It's the
content
same thing.
creation to
Yep.
skill to building skills. I feel like anything. I think it's a Tony Robbins quote, and I hate that I'm quoting Tony Robbins here, but I think he says people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate hugely what they can do in 5 or 10. And I
Oh,
feel like that goes a
100%.
long way. Yeah, for sure.
I agree.
And Dion, as well, just to change the topic, because this is something I wanted to ask you about, because you work a lot in pre-sales, so I'm sure you align yourself a lot with the new features as you've just
Yep.
spoke about. And this wouldn't be a podcast in 2025 if we weren't talking about AI and Copilot and the way that's just being thrown on everything. So how do you manage that in pre-sales? Do you show all the cool like Copilot features? Is it a strategy, or do you kind of put them away and say, "Oh, that's not really the best right now"? Like, how do you kind of manage that?
It really depends on the demo. It depends on what the customer wants, what they're interested in. I have prospects that are like, oh God, no, AI, I'm allergic. I'm getting a rash right now. Please do not mention it. Do not talk about it. Do not show it. So if that's the case, I'm not going to show it. I have other customers or prospects that are like, oh, we're so interested in AI. We want to see what it can do, yada, 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 that type of stuff. So it's really a conversation that you have beforehand, right? Because if this is an organization, and this again comes back to really listening to them, right? And this is also why that discovery is so important, right? You can just say like, have a sales guy call you and say, hey, can you do a sales demo next week? And I can say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And no idea who the company is, no idea what they're interested in, no idea what their pain points are, no idea what the reasoning is for this application, right? So we are going to have a very large percentage of those deals fail because I'm showing stuff. And if you're showing things, if you're showing 3 things in a row that people are not interested in, guess what? You lost them. For the rest of that demo, you're just talking against a wall. They are not interested. They're shut down. It's over. It's done. This is also, again, right, why that's so important to listen and do that discovery. So if I have a prospect that's very interested in that type of stuff, then yeah, I'll show it, right? I also talk about the fact that this is really a mindset change, right? We are used to logging in an application to review our dashboards and our charts and see what's going on and our lists of accounts and our lists of to-dos. This is different. I can now go inside Copilot, right inside of Dynamics 365 sales or field service or whatever. Let's talk about sales and say, hey, what are my opportunities? What is my pipeline? And it just shows you that little, right, a little chart, and it shows you opportunities. You can summarize that. So it's a complete different way of working, right? So you have to shift your mind for that as well. But if I have a customer that is looking at customer service and one of their pain points is, oh, we have so many knowledge articles in the system that it takes them forever to find the correct knowledge article. They have to read through all of them and find the right one. And it takes forever to, right, help these customers with their issues, with their cases, with their chats, whatever. Then guess what? I'm going to show that AI agent inside of customer service that will provide those answers based on those knowledge articles, because then the jaw is on their lap, right? It's like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. This is amazing, right? So again, it really kind of depends on the customer. What are they interested in? What are their pain points? Like I said earlier. But I do think it has a place. Certain things I feel they're not mature enough yet. So obviously I don't show them, but I do tell them like, hey, if you are interested in seeing what Microsoft is working on the new release wave, I'm like, check out my blog site, right? Like I said, I just posted yesterday a video and an article about what's coming in release wave 2025 wave 2 for sales, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, yeah, let's check that out, right? So that way you can still kind of talk about certain things, but I also tell them if I feel like it's not mature enough. And that I think also kind of solidifies that relationship that you're building with them, right? I'm not just going to show you things just because of the fact to show you things, right? And again, you're kind of damaging trust if you're doing those types of things and if you're not listening, especially if you're showing things that are maybe not ready yet because they're in preview and Microsoft is still waiting to get that feedback from MVPs and partners and customers, etc. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that stance, and I love the case of. I think it's very powerful, especially in Dynamics. I've seen it around, and I love that little chat window on the right hand side. And
oh
even though
yeah,
it's not perfect, but it's definitely you can see the direction that it can be in. Like just going in, it
yeah,
navigates you around the app. It shows you the records that you want to see, and even things like visualizing. I really like the feature where you can click a button and it will visualize like one of your views. I'm not sure if you've seen that one, but I think
yes, the
yeah,
charts,
and
yeah.
exactly. I really like that. And Dion, because you're so kept up with these new features coming out, and it's kind of your thing, your niche. What's your stance on like what excites you that you're seeing from Microsoft nowadays? So I can appreciate you're in the dynamic space, so maybe we can start from that. And are you keeping up with like the Copilot Studio stuff? Like what kind of
Yes.
excites you with all of this?
Yeah, I have been working with Copilot Studio or Power Virtual Agents ever since it came out. I was also I had that category Power Virtual Agents as well under as my MVP, because the CE side that it used to be called, right, Dynamics 365 CRM with sales, customer service, field service, all of those things were just under the category of Dynamics 365. And then Microsoft broke it up. So now you have different categories for that. So I'm not a Copilot Studio MVP, unfortunately, anymore. But that is actually, that's my baby. Like I said, I was one of the first MVPs to work with that. And I also know the guys, the PMs on that team really well. I actually have their phone numbers. We chat every now and then. But I'm the stuff that they're doing. Like if you go back to what it was before when we first started with Power Virtual Agents to Copilot Studio, which is what it is today, is phenomenal. Like what the team has done is just insane. And currently I can't even keep up with the features right now because I was looking at what's coming in Copilot Studio for this particular wave and then comparing that to last wave. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't even touched this yet or that yet. So I'm going to dive in and like get acquainted with all of that. I'm going to write content or produce content on that as well. But yeah, Copilot Studio, being able to now connect to those MCP servers, I think is amazing, right? Previously, we had to set up like different actions, right? If you wanted to do an update or whatever, you had a different action. If you wanted to do a listing of rows, you had to do a different action. Now, by using the MCP server, you just plug it in. And guess what? It's doing all those things, right? Which is amazing. But also the fact to actually create your own MCP servers, right? And then just query over whatever is configured in there, having all those actions in there, I think is amazing, and especially for people like me that are more low code. This is really giving us a lot of opportunity to create better solutions, right? Because we can now connect to things like that. You can connect to Azure. You can do Azure AI capabilities in there as well and bring that in. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. It's like, I'm so in love with Copilot Studio. It's like, I can't even talk to you about it. It's crazy. And then obviously the things that we're getting in customer service, my last, I don't know how many articles I've written. I think the last 5 articles were all about customer service. They were all about the 3 new customer service agents, right? Customer service, the intent agents, which I think is amazing, right? Basically what it does is it as you're chatting with your customer, it picks up the intent of the conversation, right? Why did the customer reach out to customer service? So you have intent groups and then that have similar intents, and then the intents can have attributes associated with it, which can help resolve the issue. So then the intent agent will start asking questions that the customer service rep can then ask the customer. And this really speeds up the process. And you can also extend the intent functionality to a Copilot, right? Now we're back to Copilot Studio. So I've written articles about all of those different things. Also, the in customer service, the knowledge agent, right, which automatically will generate knowledge articles and update existing knowledge articles based on case content, related notes, emails, etc. And then there's another one, the case management agent as well, right, which will automatically generate and update cases. And then you can also have communications that are autonomously generated, right, by the agent and do follow-ups and stuff like that. To me, it's just like, again, if we look back to version 4.0, which I started with, to what it is now, it's just insane. I'm kind of scared to think what it's going to look like another 15 years from today, right? But then you see other things like stuff that it's doing in Power BI, where you can just start using the agents in there to do things. And inside of other applications like the ERP systems as well, right? It's just so crazy. And it's to be able to generate these expense reports based on data that's inside of your email. And yeah, it's really crazy. But I still also like things like I was very excited when I heard about the hierarchy control that was actually deprecated last year. I think it was October 2024. Yeah, don't ask me how I know that. I have a very strange thing with numbers and dates. So I think it was October 2024 where they deprecated it, and you could still use it, right? There were so many people that were complaining about it, so you could still enable it, so you could still use it in your model-driven app. But they announced that there's going to be a new hierarchy control. That version 1 is just going to be, right, just one table that it will support. But in the next version, it's going to be more complex scenarios and multiple tables. So I'm super excited about that as well. That has nothing to do with AI, but I still think that's going to make it, a lot of things a lot easier for us, right? Showing these things and for people that are actually building out these things during implementations as well. So yeah, lots of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I love model-driven apps. It's like my thing, and obviously it ties in with Dynamics. It's a nice subset of it. And seeing all of these agents pop up and seeing all of these kind of topics, I feel like a lot of people can also get overwhelmed, right? And
Oh yeah.
I think a big thing is like something I struggle with the most is, and you've alluded to it, but it's when a feature comes out and you're like, I haven't even looked at the one before. Like, does that even exist anymore? It's on my list, and then I have to take it off the list and start again. So do you have like a process for learning these things, or do they just kind of like when they pop up in your work, that's when you'll kind of dip into them? Or is it like you have your own time to go through them? Like, kind of what's your process for learning all of this new tech?
I am maybe I'm people are probably going to think that I'm crazy, but so if I take a break, I take my lunch break, I'm on my phone, I'm looking through the new things. Like obviously as an MVP, sometimes we get access before the general public does, right? So I try to read through all the release notes, which we also get before, right, the general public. I read through all of that whenever I have a second. I just grab my phone or my iPad and I just read through all of that documentation to kind of see what's going on. And then there's a lot that you can still learn from the learn pages as well, but you also know that we have through the MVP program, we have those PGI meetings, right? Product group engagement, or product group, whatever the I stands for, I completely forgot, meetings that we can actually talk to the PMs and say, hey, I didn't really understand this. How does this work? Or if there's something in Copilot Studio that I'm not sure about, I can ping Dwayne or I can ping Gary and say, like, what is this? And then sometimes if I'm lucky, one of them jumps on a call with me and shows me real quick. You know what I mean? So yeah, I kind of become a little bit obsessed with some things where I'm dreaming about this stuff. And then I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, I have to look this up. So I have a notepad on my bed next to, on my nightstand next to my bed, where I quickly jot that down. So maybe I'm not the best example because I get a little bit obsessed. I'm like, oh my God, I want to see how this works. But I also am lucky to be in pre-sales because, like you said earlier, it is part of my job to understand what's coming, right? So that I can demo it when it actually reaches GA, or so I can talk about it when customers are asking for it, right? Obviously not the stuff that's under NDA that Microsoft talks to us about when we're not, allowed to share that. But once it is announced, I can talk about it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you've tied in your content creation to like what you do in your work. It's something I just wanted to point out in what you said earlier. Like, I love that you'll be working with a customer or a client and you've already written about something or made a video on something, you can kind of direct them there. And I think a big reason of why I was making content is because I started making content on JavaScript plugins for model-driven apps. And I was like, I want these like code blocks to be reusable. So I want to make them in a reusable way, share them to the public. I'm sure they can use them as well. And then I can dip into them as well when I need them for other customers or a
Yeah.
new project. So it was a big reason for me. And I think it could be a big motivator for people getting started too. I always like to focus on like the career side of things too, because I feel like it's not talked about enough in our space. And you've had a great journey. So I suppose a question for our audience, and one of the final ones I will have, is in relation to your journey and some of the challenges and mindset shifts that you've had that have helped you grow in your journey. So if you had to leave our listeners with a few things of your learnings, because you've seen this grow from CRM all the way now to what it is in Power Platform and Dynamics 365 on the cloud, what would you say to them?
I think the first thing that I would say is like, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed still, when I see all this stuff coming out and when I'm like, oh my God, I didn't look at this yet. I didn't look at this. Yeah, we all feel overwhelmed. It's completely normal because the technology is evolving at such a rapid pace. It's okay. It's fine. But also, this is why we're here, right? This is why this community is here. So we can help each other. So we can produce that content so you can get up to speed faster, right? So that would be a first for me because, again, I'm still getting overwhelmed myself every now and then. I think the second one is like, you're never going to stop learning. If you feel that in your position, you're done learning, and I'm not just talking about technology, I'm talking about everything, learning how to be better at presenting, learning how to be a better person, learning how to be a better manager, learning how to be a better listener, like I can go on forever. You're never done learning. As soon as you feel that you're done learning, there is a problem, because guess what? You should never be done learning, because you should always want to become better and better yourself, whether that's at your job, in your personal life, in your skills, whatever that might be, right? So I think that's also a very important thing to have that as well. And again, something that I said earlier on as well, for people that want to produce their own content, produce your content and don't be afraid of, first of all, what other people are thinking. And also don't be afraid if somebody else already has written something about that, because again, your view is unique. And I hear this a lot from people when I go to conferences and people come up to me and they're saying like, oh my God, I like your content so much. I wish I could, I wish I could write a blog. And I'm like, well, you can, or do a video or whatever. You can't. Just don't be afraid of it. But I feel like this community is one of the best communities out there, and we're really supporting each other. And you and I talked about this offline before we started the recording, that this is such an amazing community. I honestly cannot even mention one person where I'm like, he or she is really not that nice. I seriously cannot. Everybody that I have interacted with, they have been such amazing people to hang out with and to talk to. And you can reach out to these people, right? If you have a particular question or you want to know something uh about things. So yeah, hopefully that's going to be valuable for people. But I think those are some of the things that are top of mind for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I always say, and I love what you said about community, because I feel like in this space, the community is the superpower. It's kind of what keeps it tick. You know, there's so many events, there's so many people to meet, there's so many knowledgeable niches within this space. I feel like we'd be kind of lost without the community.
Yeah,
So I'm always encouraging people to get themselves out there, to make content if they're not making content, share their knowledge if it's right for you, of course. And yeah, the rewards to you personally and professionally, I think are you know, beyond your imagination for a lot of people. They don't know where this is going
absolutely.
to go when you start. And then, you know, you're a few years in and you're like, look how far I've come. Or, you know, even from a personal confidence level, even from a professional level, I think it can take you really far. So I think your story is an inspiring one. And one that I've learned a lot from, Dion. So thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Yeah, thanks
I
for
always
having
like
me.
no, the pleasure was all mine. And I always like to leave the ending segment to the guest, you know, roll out the red carpet, let the people know what you're up to, where they can find you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so anybody who's interested in reading more of my articles, you can go to d365goddess.com. I also have a YouTube channel, also YouTube/ D365 D3, I can't even say it, D365 Goddess. I'm going to be at the Power Platform Conference as well in October. So if you want to talk, come find me. I'd love to hang out, have some conversations about the software, the tech. Maybe you want to become an MVP. Maybe you have other questions. Sure, I'll be happy to talk to you. I'm actually doing a workshop on Copilot Studio on October 31st. So definitely come join us for that workshop. And you can use, I think the code is D Taylor 100 or it's Taylor 100. Anyways, it is on my it's on my website as well. Or you can just ping me if you want that $100 off of registration. But yeah, looking forward to connecting with people in the community. And also, if you find me on LinkedIn, feel free to connect. I will accept your connect because I am a LinkedIn open networker as well.
Amazing, love to hear it. And all of the links will be in the description. So the conference, Dion's blog, and anything else that she mentioned, I will make sure to go through and make sure those are all linked for you. But Dion, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming on. And to any listeners listening to this, if you've got any value out of this, make sure to ping Dion and let her know. You know, it's an amazing community, but a niche one, and it's nice to know we've got each other's back. So Dion, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, I think it stopped. It says